Hi, everybody. Welcome to Redesigning Life. Today, I am welcoming a guest who embodies magic in a very approachable way. Mia Magic, thank you so much for joining us. I am excited to talk to you. I know you've been on the Today Show. You've had book, you've had your another book, and now you have a new book coming out, The Ritual, October 28th, right?
Yep.
I have so many things to talk to you about the book because I was able to get a PDF version, but thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you because I feel like the way that you approach manifestation is very much like you can introduce people who have never done this before to the concept. And your introduction to your book, you were talking about losing touch with your own practices and then you finding your own way back to them.
Mhm.
And I feel I was actually having a conversation with my best friend about this too, because I have created so much magic in my own life, but then there are some times that I get into a rut. And my best friend is in a bit of a rut herself at this point, and it's like I'm trying to call her back in. But you talk about even going through it yourself. Can we discuss that a little bit and what that looks like?
Totally. I think for one thing, when you start to have greater spiritual awareness, or when you start realizing, oh, maybe the world isn't exactly how I thought it was because I've been looking at it through the lens of my trauma or my pain. At the beginning, you usually do spiritual practice to get something. You want to feel more peace, or you want to feel less stressed, or you want to deal with your anxiety, and you're doing it because you know it's going to give you a positive result. And then at a certain point, you've achieved some of those positive results. You've like made some cool magical things happen, and then it maybe feels like the practice isn't as important. You're like, "Oh, I've already reached this level." But then when you reach a certain level and you're up high or feeling great, there are inevitably going to be deeper rooted things or issues that you want to unwind, that you want to face, that you want to look at. And in order to keep rising, to keep growing, to keep going higher and further, you have to touch those darker shadows and layers. And that's why we get into a rut, is because something else that we need to touch on, that we need to look at, comes up for us to face off with and to deal with. And so for me, that was really about relationship. And I had been in a partnership that in so many ways was so beautiful and so magical, and he was such a good man. And it wasn't right for me for a long period at the end. And I knew that, and I stayed. And so the rut that I was in was like a lot of punishment, like self-punishment, a lot of disappointment in myself, a lot of confusion. Why would I bypass my needs? Why would I not honor what's best for me? And I had to answer those questions. And the answers to that, oh, I feel unworthy, or I don't believe I deserve love, or I'm not willing to stand up for myself in this way. And as a very direct, powerful woman, I usually stand up for myself. I don't have a lot of trouble with that. But then to
Yeah.
see cases where I did, really, it did drag me down. It did make me sad. It did make me feel less powerful than I had felt before. And so those pieces, when you answer those questions of the why, and usually it has something to do with your childhood or your parents, it can make you feel unmotivated. It can make you feel just like, oh, lazy or frustrated. And it's actually it's the hardest choice you'll ever make, to do something about that feeling, but it is the most worth it. And the opposite of depression is not joy and happiness, it's expression. Depression means to push down, to like shove down. And so when we are depressed, we're pushing down something that needs to be felt, it needs to be expressed. And so that is, for me, like the only way to get back into the motivation of the ritual is to just do something, like express something, get up, move your body, get into nature. And, my yoga teacher always used to say the hardest part is getting on the mat. And that's the truth. It's just getting there, getting to the practice, doing the thing, getting in the car to get yourself out to the hike. That part is challenging, but it is, when you show yourself you can, even when you don't want to,
Oh,
that is
amen.
mark of resilience.
Amen. I mean, I have the same sort of background with relationships teaching me those darker sides of myself. And then it was also difficult for me because I am a Cuban Capricorn from New Jersey. Like, I have no, not only am I not passive aggressive, like, I'm aggressive aggressive. And so when I was putting up with BS that I was way better than, I then started shaming myself, like, you know better, or like, what are you doing? But it takes the showing it takes doing the things like you just said, to show up for yourself in times that you don't want to is what brings, I think, the biggest, it catapults you to the next part of your life of, like, learning the lessons. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely, of course. I mean, that's the version of me that I am now versus the one that I was a year ago during my breakup is like night and day. Like, I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with myself now. And I was in the depths of my shit a year ago, like really having to look at things that I had managed to sweep under the rug, or at the very least, like, oh no, I'm not like that. I'm like this. Like, I'm so powerful, and look at me and my business and all my books and all my cool stuff. Like, oh, I'm so good. Everything's great. And it's like, oh wow, that can still be true. They
Right.
they don't have to be mutually exclusive. That can still be true that I'm doing great. And again, in order to keep rising higher, we have to keep dropping deeper. We have to keep digging lower into our psyche and into ourselves in order to allow that equal as above, so below to keep growing and expanding. And my goddess, thank heavens for all of those painful bullshit moments,
I
because
know.
getting to meet them makes you like the most magical version of yourself.
It's funny, about over 2 years ago, I was in Greece and I hit my head really hard.
Mm.
And, my fr then when I had, like, a horrible black eye. It was
Oof.
just a mess, but for the rest of the trip, you would have thought I was, like, a supermodel. For some reason, I just was, like, in my power, and I think it's because I looked so crazy that I was like, "Okay, I could just be myself." My girlfriend said it was, like, the opposite of Shallow Hal, where I hit my head, and now I think I'm the hottest thing in the world, but my whole life changed after that
Yeah.
because I became, like, more in love with myself, and it
Mhm.
was and so many things. And then I ended up meeting my fiancé and all this stuff, but it was like I was in this in between time of, like, I'm just gonna be me, and whoever likes it, whoever doesn't can go fly a kite. And
Yeah,
I feel like sometimes we need to go through those really hard times to get to the next part. I mean, you
absolutely.
teach people, you even had a residency where you teach people manifestation. So, and my whole life, I believe in it, so, like, in every vein in my body believes in manifestation. Sometimes are better than others, but, like,
Mhm.
for somebody who's new to the ritual, how do you get started with somebody to manifest love or money or whatever, like, fill in the blank?
So I think the reason why I've had, you started with the Today Show and the residency, like the reason why my work has hit the mainstream in the way that it has, that's a little different from most manifestation teachers, is because it's about healing. So if I want to manifest more love, then instead of telling you to like write a bunch of affirmations about how loved you are, I want to work with your subconscious. I want to understand where you don't love yourself. If you want to call love into your life, where are you not showing up in a loving way that supports like both the giving and the receiving of love? If you want more money, well, where are you being or acting out of scarcity? Even like a big part of my brand is like, I don't support Amazon because like child slave labor and cheap, shitty plastic stuff and like horrible impact on the planet, that's actually scarcity. We think like, oh, it's abundant. I can just immediately buy this thing and like it's going to come to me tomorrow and it's so fast and easy. But the frequency beneath it is scarcity. And so when we're operating from these totally subconscious and unconscious patterns, we're not able to manifest the things with as much clarity. So for me, I love working with nature because nature, there's no middleman, there's no pomp and circumstance, there's no inauthenticity. Nature just is the way that she is. And so our bodies are the earth, the bones within us are like the stones in the mountains. The breath is the wind within us. The trees and plants make it for us. We exchange it. We inhale what they exhale. Then we have saliva, we have blood. Those are the waters within us, the rivers, creeks, and streams of our veins. And then there is electricity, which we call energy, that is the fire inside of us making our hearts beat, and why we call what our neurons do when they're functioning properly firing. And so when we can look at how these elements and how our nature is being impacted or not when we want love. Are we seeking it? Are we grasping for it? Do we feel worthy of it? Oh, okay. Well, then how can I look at the way that I would want to experience love? And what am I doing that's opposing that? What am I doing that's
Right.
maybe pushing that away? And so to get started for me, what I really did was just looking at the places that I'm not living in alignment with what I want. So if I want love, where am I not being loving? And usually that's with ourselves. It's in our own minds. It's in the way that we communicate with ourselves. Maybe it is in the way that we push people off. I had a crazy animal psychic session last night about my cat, and my cat is like terrified of everyone. And she was like, well, your cat's really mirroring you. So, like, if she's afraid of everyone, it's actually this story about how, because I do, I'm a powerful, kind of intimidating woman. And I have this story that like people are afraid of me. And now like my cat is showing it to me. And so I'm looking at, okay, well, why are people afraid of me? What am I doing that makes people feel, a little like intimidated by me or nervous about the way that I show up in my intensity, in my power. And that ability to look at the mirror of your life, and that's what my first book is about, Intuition, is really how the universe is communicating to you through the lens of your reality at all times. And then Ritual, my book that comes out in October, is coming out, my book that is coming out right now, is really about how do we implement that? What do we do with that information, understanding that the world is a mirror? And when you are able to do that and implement rituals and practices and ways of being with yourself that understand life is the mirror, everything you're doing is manifesting. All the thoughts you have,
Everything.
all the
Yeah.
conversations, the way that you dress, the way that you decorate your home, and that's really what ritual is all about, is like everything is a manifestation practice and ritual. When you acknowledge and are aware of it, that's when you really take the power back and get to collaborate and co-create with the universe.
So when you're listening to this, obviously I'll have in the notes how you can get in touch with me and her book, but I got a PDF version of your book, the advanced copy. I need the real one because it's actually even it's a very pretty book.
Thank
Like,
you.
the cover is so pretty. But it's fu sen I also started following you on Instagram. You talked about something, and by the way, the Amazon thing I'd never even thought about until you
Mhm.
just said it right now. But you were also talking about the things that we listen to, and I remember, like, months ago, I stopped doing it, don't worry, but I was really, like, listening to these betrayal podcasts and, like,
Oof.
true crime stuff when I would be, like, cleaning. I realized, like, it's everything that we're doing, we're manifesting at all times, good or bad. And
Yeah.
you're right, it's like everything's a frequency. How do you think that impacts people? Can you just explain that? Because I feel like it's a really powerful concept.
Yeah.
Like the things we're eating, the things we're listening to, the people we're hanging out with.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as like, okay, if you eat a cow that has been locked in a slaughterhouse, has never touched grass, is being fed all this weird GMO grain and corn as opposed to like what it should be eating out in a meadow. And then it's killed with no consciousness and it's just like slapped into styrofoam and plastic and wrapped up and shipped wherever, maybe far away from you or from where it came from, and then it comes to you and that's what you eat. That's very different than a cow that grew up on the grass and on the land that like maybe the owner knows its name and then it's going to get killed in one shot and be butchered right there on the land. And then that's going to roll to the farmer's market with you. The reason why, and that's a much bigger conversation about the food, and there's a whole, section and chapter in Ritual on that because that is such a huge and important part of how we're tending to our bodies. And if our bodies are the earth and the agriculture systems are desecrating the earth and the soil, then naturally they're going to do the same thing to us,
Yes.
pun intended. And the piece with the content and the true crime is that when you're listening, even to reality TV, where it's all drama and it's all stirred up and it's all like, let's backstab this person and double cross this person, you are anchoring that into your consciousness as the way that we should be operating. This is how we should function. This is how we treat other women. This is how we deal with romantic relationships. This is constant chaos is the norm. And when it's crime, you are wiring your body for stress, for adrenaline, like all of the hormones that are meant to run quickly through your body and then dissipate. You are anchoring them into your system in a consistent way. And that, that feeling when we get when we watch horror movies where you're like, because like something's coming and you're waiting for it, you're like, like that feeling becomes what your body is doing all the time. And this is also a reason why so many women have autoimmune and gut issues, is because that feeling, at least for me, like I really get it in my stomach. It's like a contraction and a clenching in
Yeah,
your stomach.
same.
And that is happening because your gut is not able to process this feeling because it's not actually happening to you. And then there's no ending. It like rises up and it doesn't ever have anywhere to go. You're not shaking it off or like running away. You're just sitting there in the fear or in the betrayal. And it is, it's been proven again and more studies are coming out these days about how reality TV, true crime podcasts, horror movies, even like hip hop music talking about women. So not all hip hop, like thank goddess there's so much epic sacred hip hop nowadays, but like talking about women as if they are objects and that drugs and guns and money are the most valuable ways of functioning in our world. We're just programming ourselves to believe all that is true. And so that was a huge, I mean, beginning in 2012 when I first moved to LA, I read something about that and I just quit all of it cold turkey. I was like, cut it out. If that's I've got to the world is scary enough as it
I
is.
know.
Well, like
True.
it's bad enough as it is. I don't need to make myself feel more normal in that state. I would rather feel the exact opposite. And so it is a huge part of, if that's what we're gonna be using, we say we only use 10% of our brains. I think a lot of that other 90% is like lost magical gifts and supernatural abilities, sixth and seventh senses that we've had that like, when you look at advanced meditators or yogis, they have these incredible gifts and what we would call superpowers. I think that that's what's accessible in our minds. And that is also where a lot of our manifestation power lives. So if you're utilizing that 10% of your brain that we've got access to focus on these things, you're doing yourself a massive disservice, not just mentally, but physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And you're preventing yourself from having access to a greater, grander possibility to believe in miracles, to believe in goodness, to believe in love, to believe that we are capable of operating in a harmonious and synergistic way together.
It's I completely agree, and I have seen a shift in my own life of cutting that garbage out. Also, you were on the Today Show, and I think a big part of your teaching is the sacred rage ritual, which I wanted to talk to you about. Something I'd never thought before. Like years ago, a few years ago, I went to the Hoffman Institute. I don't know if you're
Mm,
familiar.
mhm.
And a big part of the week was doing a lot of rage work, which I never do. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought it was silly, to be honest. I'm like, I don't want to hit this bag with this bat is so stupid. And there was so much emotion that came out physically of my body of like crying and I know that you have your own way of doing the ritual. So can you kind of tell people, because it struck a chord with a lot of people, why do you think collective rage needs a voice right now?
Because rage is what motivates us to do something. Rage is what incites movements. You look at the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the LGBTQIA plus movement, like that comes from rage. That comes from oppression. That comes from things that we've been told not to do or not to be. And finally it reaches a fever pitch and we want to stand up and do something about it. And I think that the biggest issue and the reason why that struck such a chord is because anger is the one emotion in general that men are allowed to feel. Like it's normal for a man to blow up in a boardroom and like get crazy and aggressive, but it's the one emotion that women are really not allowed to feel. She's a psycho or whatever it is. And so the men who saw women having having rage that like, oh no, they're not supposed to feel that, they got really up in arms because a lot of men have never even seen that, or the only time that they see it is when it is being directed at them. Like they've done something wrong and they're being punished and they're bad. And this is a reaction to them, from their partner who has maybe like suppressed and depressed that energy and shoved it down and not said anything and, violated her own boundaries and not stood up for herself. And then it erupts. And with men, usually, and with all people, there is it's either numbness, sadness, or rage is kind of like the accessible first layer of the emotion. And then underneath that is something else. Maybe underneath the rage is sadness. Maybe underneath the sadness is rage. Maybe underneath the numbness is sadness. And when we, for the first time, like you said, some of us have never let ourselves feel the rage. And when we do that, like that has been my experience leading this ceremony so many times now, is that there is a level of freedom. There is a level of safety that arises. And when you look at the trauma work that's being done by people like Gabor Mate and Peter Levine and Bessel van der Kolk, sometimes a spontaneous eruption of anger, especially when not directed at another person like your
Right.
partner or your children, can actually be the key that heals the root cause of some of these autoimmune conditions. It's just from always when you communicate to your body. If you have a feeling, whether it's sadness or rage, doesn't matter what your gender is. If you have a feeling and you shove it down, you are communicating to your body, your mind, and your spirit, you are not good enough. You are not worthy of feeling this. It is not safe to feel this. I do not accept you feeling this. And if we think about ourselves as little children, which we all are, just like pretend grown-ups, we're all just like little tiny babies in these big meat suits. You would never want a child to feel that way. And kids are
Right.
pretty like, no, no, I'm not, and now I'm sad, and now I'm happy, and I'm gonna figure this all out, and I'm gonna jump on this thing. And as adults, we do not give ourselves that freedom. And so when we communicate to any emotion that it's not safe and it's not accepted to be present, we are causing dis-ease. We are causing dissonance in our bodies. And we are creating a pattern or a like stuck energy because it's not getting up and out. And so this ritual, I know it struck a chord because of how many of us don't feel safe to feel our feelings. And I just wanted to create, I mean, I could never have foreseen the like billions of views and all of the crazy responses that it got. But I believe wholeheartedly in it, and it's why we do it at all of my retreats and why it's such a pillar and an anchor point for my work because it does free you.
Yeah.
Because rage is a cage, emotion is a cage that we can trap ourselves in and think that the door is locked, but we hold the key. And
Yeah.
so give ourselves permission to let that energy be free. There is more space for love, for beauty, for magic on the other side that is that old total like can be a massive amount of energy that has never been expressed and it can be liberated and then all of a sudden that space can be filled with something new.
I had to put my dog down 2 years ago and or no, a year ago. My gosh, it was a year ago.
Mm.
And I was in such grief, and I was driving one day, and I drove to, like, a mountaintop, and I got out of the car, and I had to get out and scream, and thank God, Mia, nobody was around because they would have been like, "Somebody called 911." But I was just, like, outside just screaming, and I felt such, like, a weight lift off of me after I let
Mm.
go of all of that grief, and I think that you're right, like, we don't have practices like that.
No.
We're told not to, you know? It's just wild, and I feel like it is such a it's so therapeutic.
Yeah. And it's proven now to when you're doing it, not just, we go through a whole process. We walk through your history and your life and all the moments you shut yourself down or didn't stand up for yourself. And then you're not doing it at anyone. The earth is literally designed to compost and alchemize. She takes dead animals and rotten fruit and bones, like she composts and alchemizes. And that's why we do it in nature. That's why we bring it to her because she knows what to do with that. And when you look at plants and trees and nature, everything that falls from them, their old needles, their old fruits, the old seeds, that's what then becomes like the black gold soil, the most nutrient dense, rich food and fuel for the future. That's what
Yeah.
they nourish themselves with in the days that come. And so I really feel that for this ritual. It's about how can I use this? How can I let what falls away, what comes out of me, whether it's my tears or my screaming, to fuel my future and my next chapter and what's coming.
In the book, you also share a practice like the kitchen witchery. Can you give a glimpse of like an everyday ritual that listeners can begin today listening to this?
Yeah, so water holds memory. You can freeze water with a picture and it will stay there. Water is so much more sentient and magical than we know. So anytime you're drinking anything with water, whether it's coffee or boiling pasta or making a cup of tea or a cacao or a matcha, whatever it is, you can program your water. You can send intention and energy into your water. You can tell it things. You can
Okay, so like walk somebody through doing this, like for real.
Okay, so I've got my matcha right here. So I
Okay.
started with a little water and some almond milk, and then I put all the little things in. And so either while it's frothing, while you're stirring it, while you're putting everything in, you can just whatever it is for the day. You're like, today I am going to feel so open and so surrendered and so trusting. And I feel so grateful. It doesn't matter what it is. Or you're like, today is going to be the most full power, deep magic. I'm going to experience a miracle today. Something is going to happen where I get an undeniable sign from God and I am going to feel so held and so supported. Like you get to decide what energy you want to put into it. And then, of course, when you look back farther, all of our before J.D. Rockefeller, the oil magnate, took over the American Medical Association and utilized his massive financial influence to propagandize the entire natural holistic medicine industry and make pharmaceuticals out of oil, which is what pressed pills are all made out of, is petrochemicals, rather than our pharmacopoeia, which comes from the earth. Before the 1920s, every bit of our medicine came from plants and or animals. You know, there's a lot of Chinese medicine with like oyster shells and pearls and pangolin scales and things like that, elephant tusk, right? But everything used to come from nature. So every herb, every plant has either a magical or a medicinal signature or remedy to it. Like my cat is having digestive issues and it's like slippery elm bark and psyllium husk and marshmallow root, it's easy things. These are like beautiful natural remedies that I can give her that I take myself as well. And so that is also a really beautiful practice, is just to know the frequency of the herbs that you're putting on your steak, in your eggs, on your salad, right? And understanding, oh, okay, this turmeric that I'm going to put into whatever it is, my oatmeal in the morning, that has anti-inflammatory properties. That's going to like actually help my body soothe and settle. Can I just be present and aware of with that rather than just kind of unconsciously sprinkling it on? And that's why we say a woman's place is in the kitchen. That's why cauldrons have been associated with witches since the beginning of time, is because the kitchen was the original place where our medicine was made.
Yeah. I am so fascinated by just food healing us and food being
Yeah.
medicine. I just love the idea because I think, there's some people who are listening who just like don't cook or just don't have the time. But I think it's a simple practice is drinking your water or coffee in the morning and just putting an intention into it is something anybody could do no matter what. And even if you think it's ridiculous, just do it anyway and see how it works.
And just look up like hydrography or Dr. Emoto's work on the water molecules. Like there, you can't, it's science,
It's
it's not
science.
woo woo. It's not like out there. It's science. And water is, we've had a different relationship to water in the modern era because we're filtering it and piping it through, but all of our water used to be living wild water. We'd get it from springs and rivers and creeks. And so we have a different relationship to water now, but it is an incredibly magical element. And look at what the earth does, right? She grows all these different plants in these seeds, and like this tiny little cone can become a redwood tree. And there's all this intelligence and information. And if you watch a fire dance, like we can't, when you sit around a fire, like we just stare at it because it's genetically within us as a species. And air we can't see, but has a lot of power even in its invisibility. And so we kind of forget that water has magical qualities to it. But it does. And it, steam and vapor and mist and fog and ice and snow. And I mean, have you ever looked at a snowflake? Because
I know it's
whoa.
so for anyone listening, the study, and I'm just going to butcher it, but I'm just going to give you the Cliff Notes version. But there was a professor that had his students talk poorly to some water and say nice things to other
Mhm.
water, and they had put it under a microscope, and they saw that it actually broke down the molecules of the water in such a bad way of the the water that was being talked down to. I mean, if that's like the very short version, but it was, you could see scientifically that it did change the molecular structure of that water. So all of that to say, like, it isn't necessarily woo woo, it is real. Anyway, I diverse. I digress. In Ritual, you ask us what ignites my
Mm,
divine work, to ask yourself that. So when asking yourself, like, I want to ask you, like, right now in your life, Mia, like, what is igniting you? Like, what's next?
mhm.
What's giving your soul a hug right now?
Oh, that's such a great question. Well, to be honest, right now, I'm having a new layer and level of sexual awakening that is really igniting me. I've been studying Tantra for over 10 years. I'm actually at the temple where one of my best friends, Layla Martin, OG high tantric priestess, um, lives, and I've been studying with her and sitting with her and doing internal sexual practice for such a long time, and I've finally found like a willing playmate and participant that is initiating me and allowing me to initiate them in a really big way. And so there's a lot of new codes. I've also studied how we use our masculine and feminine, our dominance or submission, our, like power over or like capacity to influence the world and the universe, right? Sort of like what we're talking about with manifestation. And then also our necessity to surrender and to trust and to let go and to not try and adjust reality and just let it be what it is. And so for me, yeah, I have a new program called Sex Switch coming up and out that is like bubbling into my cauldron right now that feels really exciting, and I've gotten to learn how to like be my own daddy in a whole new way.
I
And
love that.
I have a part in Ritual about like being my own sugar daddy because I've never had a man be able to take care of me financially. I've always been the one who is doing that. And so that's been a really big, powerful awakening for me that has been there's only so much practice you can do on your own before you have to find someone else to do it with.
Yeah,
And yeah, in my partnership, I just didn't have a willing playmate, and so it's been so healing to find masculine presence that is like so down for every ounce of my magic and my power and is not afraid of me and can meet me in all the realms. And in that vein, there is a lot of new creativity coming forth for me where I'm not feeling the same level of desire to like be the one front facing with business. And so I've been working with a bunch of epic entrepreneurs to give them the skill set and the back end sort of creative direction of what I did for my own business and how to build, a really successful spiritual company and how to create an authentic personal brand. And it's been really fun to be kind of like the secret weapon in the back pocket and be behind the scenes and be orchestrating something where it's not about me and I don't have like the numbers and the followers and the launch strategies like aren't anything that I have to sort of identify with
yeah,
personally.
yeah.
So those are kind of like the 2 big things that have been really fun for me, and it is kind of like just working with that inner daddy and mommy energy, in a whole new way that's been so sweet and actually really healing for me as well.
I love that. Okay. Um, Finally, if you could, I wrote this down. I wanted to ask you if you could gift one collective ritual to the entire world to do, because you have a lot. So if you could just give one, what would it be?
And they can't fight me and they can't argue, they just have to they're just compelled to do it.
Yeah.
I would want every single person on earth to go out into the woods, into a beautiful, peaceful, pristine forest, and lay face down on the ground for at least an hour. I like to do like 2, 3, 4 hours. No phone, no getting up, no distractions, just literally coming home to nature and the way that you discover your true nature. And that it's hard. Trust me, I've done it where you're like, "Oh, I could get up now. Oh, I'm finished. Like, oh, it's fine. Okay, I've been here for a while. Like, oh, I wonder how much time it's been. Like, oh, I should check my phone. What if someone's coming? Oh, what if they, like there's a million different reasons to get up.
Yeah.
And when we don't, and when we stay, and when we allow the stillness of the natural world and the true frequency of sentient aliveness that our planet carries when we get out off the grid, away from the internet and all the distractions and all the noise, there is nothing more healing. There is nothing more activating. There is nothing more transformative than that. That single, simplest. You don't have to do anything. And that ritual has been the single most powerful of any I've ever done in my life.
You are amazing. I'm so happy we did this. I hope that we get to hug each other soon in person. I don't know if you're going to Spain, but I might see you somewhere around the world.
I love that. Now I'll be back in LA soon enough. I'm always there.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I cannot wait to also get my hands on your physical book. But everybody, I'll put it in the notes how you can get in touch with Mia, not only for her retreats, but the book. She also does one on one. She's helping other soulful entrepreneurs as well. So thank you so much.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Sabrina.